that argument could have been made that, you know what, things aren't in their right place, things are all over the place, things are chaotic. You know, one minute the Queen pops up there, the next one, yeah. Go ahead.
So, are we good? Sorry guys, let this pass and then I'll respond.
Yeah, that's fine.
Sorry, Z. Good
Have you guys been Winter Wonderland? I've heard mixed reviews about
It's
it.
at the top of my list.
Yeah?
So I'm going to repeat my understanding of the question to make sure I understand, then I'll respond to it.
Yeah.
Right. So the comment was that the human body is created with such detail and so articulately that this is consistent with a story where God is wise. Is that the comment you're making?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that if wisdom is defined as putting things in their right place,
Yes.
and a case study of that is a human being,
Yeah.
and the human being, by looking at our physiology, even if you take other things around us, when you look at the physiology of those things, it indicates that things have been put in their right place for them to produce functionality and a purpose that indicates wisdom.
Okay, so I can agree that this is consistent with a story of wisdom, but I'm going to ask you if there's another possible explanation, which is, suppose this powerful, intelligent God is still subject to laws of physics and cannot break these laws of physics, and thus created Earth using some limited ability, and those laws of physics naturally resulted in the evolution of humankind to how we are today. Is it possible that this is consistent with what we're observing, but not necessarily a result of wisdom of God?
The only issue with that would be that what we know of the Big Bang is the beginning of time and space, and we believe the necessary being has to be outside of time and space, because time and space are those things that limit it. And because we agreed at the beginning that the necessary being is independent, it's not limited or dependent on anything.
So, well, okay, sorry, I'm interrupting you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can this independent being cannot change the laws of physics, or can?
No, the independent being is not dependent on the law of physics. He can change the laws of physics, of course.
So I'm not saying. So the laws of physics just exist, and so what if this independent being just created some basic form of life on Earth, and those laws of physics resulted in evolution and the current humankind we observe today? Is that possible?
So you're saying, has this necessary being put certain things in place
Yeah.
that we are seeing today?
Right.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we do believe. We don't believe that the necessary being would have to physically be tinkering with every little thing.
Right.
It's some things can be created, but there is a sense of maintenance as well.
Okay.
Yeah, maintenance. Otherwise, it would fall in that deistic belief in God, which is this necessary existence created everything, and like a wind-up toy, everything is just kind of just doing its thing.
Plays out.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm kind of repeating myself. I can accept that the observations on Earth are consistent with some wisdom in God, but it is also possible that there are other actions by God that are not wise, right?
Like what?
I don't know what they would be, but is it possible? Given this, like we're saying, we have a case study that implies God is wise, but we are not observing all of God's actions. Thus, how do we know they're all wise?
What I'm saying is that we're using the scientific inquiry here, which is induction. So induction, just like with any science that we're doing, whether it's coming up with vaccines,
Yeah.
whether it's coming up with cures or whatnot.
Interrupt. Are you saying,
No,
given
go ahead.
the observable evidence, we should conclude that God is wise? Is that what you're saying?
I'm saying in science we use induction, and then we perform experiments, and then once we've done enough, we say the inference to the best explanation is X.
Okay.
So
I can accept if your claim is the best explanation is that
Yeah.
God is wise, that's fine. But it is also possible that we have not yet learned. There's more things still to learn. That's what I would say.
that's fine. So I guess what I'm trying to say to you, just like with everything else, we say the inference to the best explanation is that copper conducts electricity, that the forecaster said that it's going to rain, or
It's gonna rain. Yeah.
yeah, I hope not. So the inference to the best explanation, was this, but then I would also appeal to my original point, which was that if we believe that this necessary being is intelligent, is powerful, it has will, wisdom, then I would argue, but again we don't have to stick on this point. I would argue that everything that has now resulted from this necessary being is a result of wisdom. Now, just because we don't understand it or we have a certain expectation of it. I'll give you an example. Somebody may look at a knife and say, that's not a wise invention at all. Completely and utterly unwise.
Right.
But somebody else that forages for berries in the forest, or even my mum who wants to peel an apple for me, she would understand and appreciate the use. Yeah. So again, that could be subject to a person's understanding, or a cat would not understand and appreciate a Wi-Fi router. It would very happily urinate on there. Yeah. But if I saw my cat urinating on my router, it's not going to be a happy day for me. You know what I mean? Because I understand the complexity of the Wi-Fi router. So I guess what I'm trying to say is the argument from ignorance, that just because we may not conceive something to be of certain use, or we may not think of it to be wise, doesn't necessarily mean it's wise. But I grant your premise, which is that the inference to the best explanation is wisdom, and then we can kind of proceed on from there. And the wonderful thing now, Michael, is the 4 characteristics that I've given the necessary existence is pretty much the Islamic definition of God. So you are in line with the Islamic definition of God. So then moving on, wisdom, one thing that I would argue here is if we accept that inference to the best explanation is God, or the necessary existence who we deem to be God, to be wise, it's unwise to create things with no purpose whatsoever. Would you agree with that? If not, feel free to give me an example.
Well, what is? We need to define what purpose is.
Purpose,
Because I can say I can create something that you think has no purpose, but for me it's entertaining.
but that's a purpose.
Right.
So function, I guess. So GTA 6, I guess. Yeah, that was in social media. A lot of people have issues with that, but a lot of people are saying, you know what, that's going to be fun. Yeah. So it fulfills the purpose for which it was created, which is to entertain people. Can you use the money from GTA in shops? Of course not. Can you use it to, get married to somebody? I haven't come across a situation in which that's possible. So there is a purpose. So to simplify, purpose, let's just link it to functionality.
So there necessarily needs to be a function of like our life on Earth. What are you talking about?
Yeah, so what I'm saying is, my point to you was, you can't be wise and create something with no purpose.
I am actually going to disagree with you on that one.
Yeah, fantastic.
So functionality is your definition of purpose.
It's a very simplistic way of us.
What if this wise God just got bored and was like, let me just experiment and create something very well designed just because I can? Is that impossible?
But that's what I'm saying. For a wise creator to just do things for no reason whatsoever, no purpose whatsoever, it goes against wisdom. I'll give you an example. If my professor comes into the lecture hall, we've got exams coming up, and he starts doing a break dance, and then I raise my hand thinking, you know what, maybe this has got, this is an analogy. He wants to teach me something. He's doing a Mr. Miyagi on me, yeah? So I want to find out, wax on, particles off, or what? No, he's doing one of those ones. And I ask him, sir, what was that? He was like,
No reason.
no, not even that. He's not even dignifying me with the last one. He's like, because I can.
Right.
Would my impression of him would be that he is a wise professor that understands I've got exams coming up, he's intelligent, he knows what's going on, or would my kind of appreciation of his wisdom go down because of him doing a random action?
Well, obviously in that context that is not wise, but again, consider the same professor in his office at his computer supposed to be doing research, and he's just like, I'm really curious what these data look like. I'm not going to write a research paper. I just kind of want to play around with it just because I can.
But do you see though, this is what they say of child rearing as well. The best way that a child can learn is through play. So play is with the purpose of learning, because what you're doing is you're finding out where all the bits go. But what I'm arguing is, if there is immense intelligence of this necessary being, the necessary being doesn't need to tinker with things, because that would assume that there is lack of intelligence. Because somebody,
but he's just entertaining himself.
but entertaining yourself how though? How would that? How can we see something that is?
Maybe God is laughing at us right now thinking about this. Like, they're so stupid. They're actually trying to think about this.
The only way God would be laughing, would be that, there are people that actually don't believe that I exist. They actually believe that they came from nothing. There was no order. This is
maybe people believe and just got it completely wrong, and he thinks that's funny too.
The thing with that is that would mean that the creator is manipulative,
or just has a good sense of humor.
A sense of humor. But imagine creating something and not putting that thing in place. I would argue that there is enough evidence, there is enough faculties that we have to determine. I'll give you an example. One of those faculties, or one of those knowledge that all of us have, is called the innate disposition to believe in God. Justin Barrett. The University of Oxford. He conducted a sociological experiment over many years, many countries, and he concluded that we are innately dispositioned to believe in a God.
Historically, most cultures have always believed in a God, or multiple.
Even if a person is left in the forest, even if a person is alienated from society, they would believe in a creator of sorts. So bearing that in mind, and then when a person looks at, say, a butterfly, a sunflower, when a person sees system, order, a person concludes that I didn't just come from nothing, I came from something, and then that journey begins. So I guess, Michael, what I would argue was the creator, if he creates us, he's given us a purpose to recognize him, to know him, and we have certain weaknesses and we rely upon him. It doesn't make sense for him to be laughing at our misery. It would make sense for him to be assisting us during our misery, because that is more fitting of a wise God, of an intelligent God. I'll give you an example.
Fitting and makes sense doesn't mean it has to be that way, though.
It makes sense, but then we come back to the inference to the best explanation.
I can agree it makes sense, but that doesn't mean it's true.
No problem. But what I'm saying, Michael, is that, let's just say, me as a human being, with my limited understanding, limited wisdom, definitely, a lot of things got wrong. But let's just say I'm with my kid. He's doing something that is detrimental to him, like really detrimental.
Right.
I'm like, what a prat.
Sometimes you do need to let kids make mistakes, because that's how they learn.
You do.
Yeah.
But to a limit.
Right.
And if you're seeing how these guys just, not getting overly political here.
Now you're talking about God being good.
Yeah.
So now you got into that whole intelligent, powerful good.
But here's going to be the difference here with the stance that you're used to with regards to Christianity. We don't believe he's all good.
Oh, he's not all good.
No.
Oh.
We don't say all good because we believe God has other characteristics as well. All good would imply that that's it.
Doesn't it make sense that God would be good? Going back to
No.
your phrase.
It would make sense for God to be good, for God to be wise, for God to be loving, but to only say that this one characteristic encompasses him, that's false. Because in order to be just, sometimes you, like you said, you have to let somebody make a mistake.
Yeah.
You have to let a child cry.
Okay.
But then a person would say that is not a good mother.
Right.
But she is a good mother, but that woman or that mother, or that mother is, she's loving.
Yeah.
She's being just. She's being merciful, etc., etc.
Are we backlit?
Yeah. That's fantastic, isn't it?
All right,
Was that bad?
It was too bright.
Okay. So in that sense,
It's fine. You can see face now. It's fine.
yeah. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that if you look at the inference to the best explanation and you're like, what best suits the situation? I agree with you. There is conversation that can be had about the branches that you said, and we can explore those. It's fantastic. Yeah, and I like the fact that you brought it up. But because I don't know if I'm going to see you again. If I knew that, so if I knew you were coming next week, then we could have put certain things on ice and said, let's get back to them.
Sure.
But because I know I'm only going to see you once, I want to kind of give you like a cohesive picture.
All right.
So you got something to go away with, and then that maybe you can supplement later.
So I'll leave in a minute, but I'll listen to your closing statement and then I'll get out of here.
Wicked. So then if we accept those things which you said that resonate with you, and I agree with you, that there are certain issues by saying that God is all good, he loves everybody, and there's certain issues with that.
Yeah.
But even before we get into that, we have accepted in this conversation there has to be a necessary existence. It has certain characteristics. Those characteristics or qualities are that which Muslims believe that to be of God. Then my argument would have been that it's not befitting of a wise God to create human beings and just leave us. It would necessitate, or it would suit God to communicate and build that bridge of us.
Merry Christmas!
Thank you. So for us, for that bridge of knowledge, of us to gain that knowledge from God on how to live an effective life, because although the argument that you probably would have given, because I'm on ×2 mode now, would be that there's certain things that we can intuit, and I would agree with you, but not everything can be intuited, and that's why there is in morality there is such a disjunct, such disagreement. I mean, you look at, for example, the Israel-Palestine issue that's going on, even the arguments pertaining abortion, even the arguments pertaining LGBT, these are moral arguments, and there is no moral consensus. So this argument that, no, we have everything that can be intuited, it's actually, I don't think that's accurate. There are certain things that we need guidance from this all-knowing to kind of assist us in this. And then the argument would have been, which of the books makes the most sense? Yeah. And before I leave you, I'm just going to, just fast forward. So what makes the Quran different? You probably would have said different books make different claims. I would argue that the Quran, one of the things that the holy book has to have is preservation. Yeah. If a holy book comes from God and it's no longer that book from God, then how can you rely upon it for your salvation? It's a weak document. It's unreliable. And I would argue that the Quran from the ancient religions is perfectly preserved. And the 3 ways that you can measure it to be perfectly preserved, and again, we're being filmed, you can check these later on as well, is number 1, a live language. The Quran is in Arabic, it's just a live language. It's top 5 spoken languages in the world. Old Testament is in Hebrew, not a live language. Jesus spoke Aramaic, not a live language. Even Greek is not necessarily a widely accessible live language. So we've got live language, we've got memorization. Quran is the only ancient book which has been memorized from cover to cover from children as young as 6. So this is part of, the Islamic culture to memorize Holy Scripture. And I would argue that if all the scriptures are burnt and destroyed, the Quran can be written word for word, and that's something that you can explain to a 10-year-old, a 20. You don't need like a degree or a PhD in theology or philosophy to understand this. I can explain to an average person that look, this is how the Quran is preserved. And the third thing would be manuscripts. We have manuscripts that have been carbon dated. Like the oldest manuscript we have of the Quran is in the University of Birmingham, and it's been carbon dated by the University of Oxford. You can Google this when you get home, BBC. So the Bible, the Old Testament doesn't claim this, the New Testament doesn't claim this, the Vedas doesn't claim this. So this is what makes the Quran stand out from the other books. And then the other thing would have been that we would have engaged with prophecies, like what prophecies are the Prophet made, and then you could have told me some prophecies and we could have kind of discussed about that. Because if somebody claims to be a prophet, there needs to be ways that you can, if I tell you a prophecy, Michael, and you're somebody that, again, you don't want to fall within that circularity of, okay, you've heard that from a guy called Mohammed, a guy, not the prophet, a guy called Mohammed, and he heard it from a guy called Ahmad, he heard it from this guy and that guy. And then I would understand that you're saying that, look, it's just within your religion, frankly. So there is a prophecy that's actually in the Quran, of the Byzantines, that they would win between 6 to 9 years. It's in the Quran, and at that time the Byzantines were losing, but then this prophecy has been chronicalized by somebody called Theophanes. This was not a Muslim, in fact he was a Christian, and it's in the Chronicles of Theophanes who's verified this prediction of the Quran taking place. He didn't mention that it was something that, it's true because of the Quran. He's verifying that this took place, that the Byzantines did indeed win. So although the prophecy is in the Quran, it can be cross-checked and cross-referenced by a non-Muslim source. There's also small ones that the Quran said that this individual, the Quran pretty much said that he's not going to accept Islam. He was alive. He was actively working against Islam. His name was Abu Lahab. All he had to do was say, okay, so the Quran says, I'm not going to accept Islam.
He accepted that because, I guess.
Do you see?
Yeah.
But he didn't. Yeah. He didn't. It didn't even occur to him, and he didn't even survive till the conquest of Mecca, which everybody pretty much accepted Islam at that time. So it's like the author of the Quran, we believe to be God, knew that he would not survive till the conquest of Mecca. So then I would have talked about prophecies, and then so the Quran and the prophecies, and then I would have kind of made the argument, and then you could have looked into it, and then hopefully we could have spoken again. However, I do have I'm on social media. I have something called Smile to Jannah. Jannah is Jannah. Jannah is Jannah, which is paradise. That's my YouTube channel, Smile to Jannah.
Be on there, I assume?
No, this will probably be on Smile to Jannah Extra.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
I'll go find it.
So it's going to be on Smile to Jannah Extra.
Cool.
And if you do have any questions or you want to talk or whatnot afterwards, have a listen, have a look at the things that I said. And do you live local or you
live local, yeah.
Okay, then just message me. We'll just off camera. We just meet up for a cup of coffee, and then we just bounce off each other. And if something intrigues you,
I'm going to step out.
yeah,
but
that's fine. Really nice to meet you, Michael. Take it. Yeah, I'll take the microphone. Thanks. Thank you. Sorry for keeping you for so long.
Can I?
Yeah, Zishan. Nice to meet you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Can I ask you a question, please?
Of course, Uncle. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
What's your name?
Vernon.
Vernon. Nice to meet you. You're right.
Forget pictures.
Yes. Is it okay if I take a picture?
Certainly. Thank you.
Jazakallah, bro. Thank you. Well, yeah.
Thank you.
Vernon, are you Muslim?
No, I'm not religious.
Okay, thank you for being so patient, because you probably had some stuff that you probably maybe disagreed with, but thank you for being patient.
Well, I haven't disagreed with anything.
Okay, fantastic.
What I find extraordinary about some of the things you're saying, it makes me want to ask you a question.
Okay.
Do you think that mankind, that we all,
Yes.
can have balance, harmony, love, and peace? Do you think we can have these things without religion?
No. I don't think so.
I want you to think about that.
I have,
It's
Vernon.
no.
Yeah.
It's important that you think about it, because I feel very strongly that
Can I clip this on you? Is that okay?
you can do if you wish to.
Okay. Go ahead.
I feel strongly that if man is to take the life of another man, I think that man is doomed to eternity. I don't think that man can progress or evolve as an intelligent being. So for that reason, I believe that mankind would be much better off without religion, because in every religion, and everyone that God has ever spoken to, or said that God has spoken to them, they have committed all sorts of atrocities against mankind. And I find it extraordinary that I don't have an education, and that's the truth, see? But I rely on what little intelligence that God gave me when I was created. I rely on that. And I sincerely believe that there is no way. We look at religion. Religion to me is like a tree. And then they create and the branches is all other forms of religion that's created around that tree. And every single one of these religions, if you challenge them, they accuse you of wrong interpretation of my interpretation, but they can never get in the pulpit and speak the truth, because if you have to speak the truth, you have to speak about the atrocity of the God and those who follow that God. Now you may not commit an offense, a violent offense against someone else. Nevertheless, you are literally trying to convert others to people who has done so, and I don't really understand that.
You said your name's Vernon, yeah?
Yes.
I haven't had that name in a long time, Vernon. It reminds me of a Harry Potter character. That's how I'm going to remember it. Okay, so Vernon, I appreciate your concern, and it's definitely a concern that you're not the only one that's raised this. The problem of evil, yeah? Do you believe in God?
No. I know there is a God. I don't believe in it. There's a distinct difference between believing and knowing. As we are indoctrinated and conditioned, we find ourselves locked into systems of belief. But what is a belief? It has no foundation because it changes. Take your religion, for example. There's a gentleman who had an experience in a cave. From that experience, a book was written. But out of that book that was written, there's another 1,000 books that's written of the same thing, with little difference inside of it. So one cannot really actually tell which one is the correct book. It's the same as Christianity, and I think Christianity.
Do you believe that the books are there's only minor differences in the books?
Well, you have minor differences, but you should not have minor differences. My idea of
like the Quran compared to the Vedas, compared to the Old Testament. Do you believe that all the books have minor differences or major differences?
Major differences.
Yeah, I agree, because
they have
thought
major differences, but they should not have major differences. If you have the Word of God,
yes,
then every book should have exactly the same thing.
I agree with
if it comes from the Word of God.
I agree with
and if we don't find that, then it means that there is a mind. There's a mind somewhere that is distorting everything and conditioning us. Because when I came here about 20 years ago, I decided not to come back for the simple reason is what I observe here is that there is a conflict of emotion that goes on. You have Christian on one side, Islam on another side, and they're having this ridiculous argument about who is right and who is wrong and who is the real God and who is the wrong God. It's so crazy. I don't understand it.
But Vernon, bear one thing in mind as well. Just because there's difference of opinion, that doesn't mean. I'll give you an example. If somebody says, it's very crude examples, I don't want to